where instead of choosing the next level of Unholy Aura for his Death Knight, he used Death Pact so that he could get out of that surround and kill a ghoul, but in return saving his Death Knight. And that's the mark of a good player, is that they can change their game plan during the battle if they need to. What do you think about that, Pant3ra?
Yeah, it's definitely good. Also, I wanted to add in there, he switched the Orb of Corruption on his Death Knight, and that's always a good idea when you're going against air versus air, because it allows the Death Knight it's just one more unit focusing the table to kill air. So that's always a good idea to do instead of putting on your Lich.
Yeah, the Orb definitely. Oh, excuse me, I yawned. The Orb definitely is better on the Death Knight in this situation because it just helps folks get hard air. So good point there, Pant3ra. Now you can see Fob is doing some harassment on Grubby's Expo because he doesn't want Grubby to really out-resource him, and Grubby has his towers up or burrows. It's probably a good idea to get a burrow at your Expo just to help save those peons. So he uses the Lich just to harass them. And notice he puts the TP on the Lich. You don't want to staff because of Stomp. It really will just tear you apart by using Stomp. And your Lich would die if you use staff, because you could staff and then Stomp freezes the staff, and then you can't get out of there. So just smart thinking ahead by him, or by Fob. And that's pretty much what you want to do when confronting an Expo. Also, late game with Undead against Uruk, you want to make sure, and Human, but Human probably will have towers, so really just against Uruk, you want to make sure you send your ghouls over to the Expo to kill off the workers, because that's really all the ghouls are worth late game, because with Stomp, they really don't get to do anything anyway, and they die so easily to focus fire that in battles they really almost aren't even worth it without a Dreadlord and a statue there to help the healing. So now we have a battle, and what Fob does, which is really cool, is he just hides the gargoyles, and once Grubby uses his bats on the destroyers, he now has no counter for the gargoyles, and the gargoyles eat his air alive. Now he can focus down on the grunts, and even though Stomp really is hurting those ghouls pretty badly, because there's no more anti-air for Grubby, he really can't win that battle, so he has to teleport out. What do you think about how that battle went for Grubby there, and what, if you're another player at this point, you could do to try and get yourself out of this hole, Uruk?
Yeah, this is really not a good time here for Grubby. One thing to note here, he takes those two peons right outside of he takes them away from his expansion. He just saves himself 150 gold, and he tricked Fob, so that was a really nice move. To save yourself from this, you really have to save your Expo. Without that Expo, you cannot beat Undead, so that's exactly what Grubby is going to do. He's going to try to save his Expo here. Other than that, you just want to be going with bats, and make sure you're not exploding the bats on the destroyers here. If you see this type of a unit combo, save the bats and make sure they explode on the gargoyles rather than the destroyers. I have a few questions for you yet again, Pant3ra. First off, the DK and the Lich. We were talking a bit about that, those two heroes. Sometimes players prefer to just get the one. I'd like you to comment on that, as well as the mana fountain in the middle of the map. What do you think about that in this matchup?
Well, yeah, in this matchup on this map, definitely with the mana fountain, Death Knight and Lich would be a lot better, because you'll be able to cast a lot more spells, especially with the fountain. And the downside to that is, of course, lower hero levels, and also it's not as mobile as a solo Death Knight. You won't have as high level auras, Unholy Aura, and also the Lich move speed is average once it comes out. So you'll have to be waiting for the Lich, even though he'll have Unholy Aura on him. You'll still have to run back there every once in a while and make sure the Unholy Aura stays on him and stays with your Death Knight. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of having a solo DK and having a DK with a Lich.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. That's definitely a good point.
One more thing I might add.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Pant3ra.
I'm sorry, Ryder. Alright, also too, the Lich will save you a lot of units, and also vice versa, it'll have you kill a lot of units. And what I mean by save a lot of units is if the bat riders are chasing down your gargoyles, you need to get them away from there, like, as soon as you can. So if you have a lich nearby and you just nova the bat riders, there's no way they're going to be able to catch up to the gargoyles if they don't have stone form. So in that case, it'll end up killing the bat riders too. And also, if wyverns are running away and you nova them, they're going to die, of course. But if you just had a solo death knight with a high-level coil and a bunch of weak wyverns running away, you might just get one, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's really true. The cold effect on the units that Nova has, and because area of effect definitely saves them a lot of units, and allows them to pick off the bat riders a lot easier. And combined with that mana fountain, it's definitely a lot easier to pick off the anti-air of Grubby. But with that being said, there's a lot of versatility with Solo Death Knight, and I see a lot of top players do it. So it's your personal preference. If you like just focusing one unit down, and maybe like only destroyers and just Death Knight, then you might just want to go with Death Knight. Just more mobility, higher level coil, and a higher level aura. Or if you want to mix in some gargoyles and just go for the overall, just kill all the anti-air at once rather than focus on firing down as much, then you might want to add a lich. So if you see here, Fob is definitely going to want to keep going after the Expo, because when an orc has an Expo as the undead, that's never a good idea. And there was a nice nova there by Fob, who managed to get most of the Winners, which is what you want to do. You always want to focus into the middle of the armies, or of the air. Anyway, so at this point we're about to have a battle. So Uruk, what's up?
One thing I always see Grubby doing is using Ensnare very nicely here. He uses it sort of as a hit and run. As you see, those two destroyers were taken right out of battle with Ensnare, and then he ran back. So that is 10 food of the undead, the two destroyers, that are out of the battle. So that's a huge advantage for the orc. So that's one way to use your raiders effectively. Again, another example right here is keeping Fav it's keeping him right where he is, and he almost lost that destroyer there to Ensnare. It looks like he will. So make sure you're using Ensnare to its fullest ability. Grubby provides some very nice examples for that in all of his Orc vs. Undead replays. So if you want to check those out.
Yeah, Ensnare's a great tool, and a lot of people actually have been complaining about it this patch, saying it's too powerful, and so we might see an unfortunate nerf to that for all you Orc players, and then I guess sigh of relief for all you Undead players. But anyway, you always want to ensnare the destroyers and focus those with your Wind Riders, because those are really what are going to do the damage. The gargoyles will hurt your air, but if you have bats, it's pretty simple to kill them, or even if you have more Wind Riders than bats by a good number. So at this point, Grubby has a fairly decent battle. He manages to make sure his Expo stays up, which is important to do as Orc, as we've been through before with Uruk. And Fav has done decent amounts of damage here by just picking off units and trying to keep as many units of his alive as he possibly can, while hurting the economic advantage Grubby has. So now if you look at Grubby's army, he really has no more ground, as there really isn't much of a need for them, because at high-level heroes for Orc, that means Chain Lightning and Stomp, really, ghouls are really not much of a threat anyway, so you don't need any more of a land-based army. The only problem for him, however, is he has very few bats, and that's going to allow gargoyles to really own against this air. So now, because he has more Wind Riders, we see good adaptation by Fog to realize that he's going pretty much primarily Wind Riders, and you see primarily gargoyles. So no matter what race you play, it's always good to try and figure out what your opponent's doing and find a good counter for it. Pant3ra, what do you think about how he switches over to mass gargoyles, even though Orc has bats to use, and he still manages to micro them around? What do you think are some keys to doing that, as well as some different ways Undead can gain an advantage against Orc air?
I don't actually recommend switching to mass gargoyles against Orc on at least on an average, like on an amateur level of play, because it's really difficult to micro all the gargoyles away from the battle and everything, and actually keep an eye on when the bat riders are coming. And as for, I really think on an amateur level that what most of the listeners are that are listening, they should really switch that. They should really stick to destroyers, and then if they're going to go air and get armor upgrades for the destroyers, then when they see mass wyverns and the wyverns are becoming a problem and they're just focusing down the destroyers, that's when they should be getting some gargoyles into the mix, and then that's when they should. That's really the best way I'd say on at least that level of play, because I've tried this and it's really hard to micro those gargoyles away from the bats and keep a close eye on everything.
Yeah, because I believe no matter how many armor upgrades you get on a gargoyle, it still is an instant kill. So, very tough to micro.
Something I noticed, Fog here, when you have a level 5 hero and you're trying to creep, you can't level up the level 5 hero, yet he takes EXP from the creep camp. So what Fog did is he ran his DK back so that his Lich could level up to level 5, and his DK wouldn't steal any EXP. So make sure you do that when you have a level 5 hero and you're still trying to level up the other one. Just a small tip there.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's just another way you can improve your game, which is basically what we're all out here to do anyways, just to get better. So at this point, Grubby has had an economic advantage for a while now. You'd think that he would probably be dominating, but Bob is pretty much holding his own using the nuke that he has with his Lich and Death Knight, and managed to pick off the Bat Riders, which are pretty much the only problem. I mean, Wind Riders are good air to ground, but they're not very good air to air because they attack slowly, and Gargoyles are just beastie. But anyway, he comes in here and he uses a teleport here because he doesn't want to lose anything.